Yeah. So it's so weird, man. I leave the country for 2 weeks, I come back, and it just fucking full viral outbreak occurs. It's like,
As far as the United States is concerned, it's March right now, early March,
yeah.
and if things don't get better much quickly for the cases that are breaking out in the U.S., then the next couple months could be some eye-opening shit.
Well, the lack of testing is the thing that worries me.
Of course, yeah.
You say what you will about how the Chinese just basically declared martial law and just started surrounding cities and shit and quarantine over 100 million people kind of by force, but they put those people on smash. They said everybody's getting tested.
Mm-hmm.
Every time you leave your house, the man in the street is watching you. I mean, that's, you want to talk about violation of privacy, is through the roof, but their outbreak is subsiding. And then the Koreans, what they've done, they every time somebody with the virus leaves their house, you get a text message,
Mm-hmm.
which has led to some hilarious stories about the guy who got caught leaving a massage parlor. They tracked him. That's a unfortunate side effect of the tracking. People are getting caught cheating on their wives and visiting hookers and stuff.
Wait, where was that?
This was in Korea, man.
Okay.
Absolutely. Yeah, a Korean man, definitely. At least it's rumored, the place that he was going to is high traffic for prostitutes, and
Okay.
so people were flaming him on the internet. You are cheating with hookers and stuff, but he said he was just going to a restaurant. So
I love how anybody in Korea could possibly try to get moralistic about that.
man, look, you know what? To each his own, right?
No, but you know what I mean. Like, there's so many of these places just out in the open.
Just out in the open. Yep. Welcome to Mars, man. Welcome to Mars.
Like in the U.S., at least you have the excuse that, I mean, most towns do not have these sorts of places just right out in the open.
You know what? You'd be surprised.
You got to search for it in normal places.
You'd be surprised.
You remember?
But you remember how that? What wasn't it? Wasn't it just last year the NFL owner got busted, and they were going to reveal the actual video of him getting a handy from a massage parlor in Florida that apparently was very well known in the underground.
But do you know what I'm saying though here? Like,
I get what you're saying.
In Korea, these places are all very easy to find. I mean, the amount of hiding that they're doing is extremely minimal. It's very out in the open. Whereas in California and every other state I've been to, you've generally got to search for this shit. It doesn't just pop up in your face,
Well, it's the same coded language that they use here. It's a massage parlor. It's the same coded language. It is the exact same coded. That's the fascinating thing, Well,
since we're talking about Korea, the other interesting thing here is how the coronavirus first spread. I think we should tell our listeners, because they probably don't know.
Yeah, break it down.
Well, I didn't follow the whole thing real super closely, but I mean, it's basically there's this weird amalgam cult. Like they believe in this weird amalgam of Christianity and Buddhism and 15 other different religions. And I mean, I think it's safely called a cult because it's really not that big, number one. And it does have not super standard religious views. But I don't intend to like criticize these people's beliefs by calling it a cult. That's just a regular sociological term. But anyways, there's this cult in Korea.
I'm not going to call it a cult, but anyway, there's a cult.
No, I said I'm calling it that, but I don't want people to get the wrong idea. Like I don't give a shit what people believe. You know, that's their business. I don't give a shit, really. But there's strong sociological reasons why to call certain things a cult and not another thing. Like, I'm not going to call it like a Baptist in the South like a cultist. They're not. You know, although I may not like their views, that's a totally non-standard use of the term. Anywho, Korea, there's this small religious group.
Right. They're called Shincheonji.
Right.
They're called Shincheonji, and most of them are in Daegu.
Well, they're all over the country, but yeah, they might be sort of concentrated in Daegu.
Yeah.
And anyways, they go all over the country to spread their gospel, you know, and a lot of times they're doing this sort of entryism thing where they'll like go into churches that are not their own and try to poach believers, right?
Really?
Oh yeah. Well, that's another reason why the word cult here fits, both on the colloquial or regular understanding of the term and the sociological understanding of the term.
The cult that's not a cult, right?
No, shut up. I didn't say that.
I'm sorry, man. I'm a dick.
No, I mean, I know you're playing with me, but...
Yeah.
But anyhow, so the virus, some of the first people that got the virus were in this little cult, and the problem is they're going all over the country, and they're often in these groups of people, and when you've got an outbreak of a virus, the last thing you want to be doing is having people, even if like you don't know if you have it or not, but you know, you want to stay home maybe most of the time, you know, you want to separate yourself from everybody.
Right. And church is very close quarters.
Right.
Any church is very close quarters, you know. And
right. And this would be maybe a little bit more, because I think they're more of the charismatic types who are doing weird shit. Like, I don't know if they're handling snakes or anything like that, but
snake handling. Oh man. Terrifying.
Speaking in tongues.
All of that. Yeah, that's right. It was said that they are they got
nabbed initially as basically the source of this, then in order to like sort of shift blame away, I think some of them were like, okay, let's spread this to the other churches so that we aren't the only ones who are being like fingered here.
Wait, seriously? Oh my God.
Yeah.
Oh man. I was out of the country for this madness.
Yeah.
Oh man. Well, good to know that you know, that's happening. Oh man. That's crazy.
Since we're talking about Korea, we should not we need to be responsible and say that like the initial numbers were pretty bad, but because of all the basically free testing that's going on, that the country has probably a much better handle on the situation than almost any other country right now.
That is where I was going with my initial statement, starting with China. Exactly. Whereas China just went straight martial law and just was China was putting people just in detainment and locking down apartment blocks and stuff like that. Korea has been relatively transparent with, you know, this is where the testing is. Testing is going to be free. This is where the bulk of the sick people are. This is where sick man A went Tuesday at 7:00. They have it down. They have it down to the minute.
Yeah.
And it's the most transparent thing I've ever seen, and it's very encouraging for me, who grew up on, you know, post-apocalyptic virus sci-fi movies and books, you know. And because you know, usually, you know, the way that works out is exactly what's happening in America. President goes on TV, everything is fine. America #1, keep shopping. There's no big deal. And that's exactly what's happening in America. And Trump actually specifically said that when that boat, there's another boat full of sick people, 3,500 sick people stuck on a cruise ship off the coast of California. And he told the governor of California, hey, you guys keep them on the ship, in part so that they would not count against the total number of victims in the United States. Because I don't need to have the numbers double because of the people on that ship, Trump said. I mean, so literally the man is just saying, I want to keep the public number down. It's not about helping these people out. It's about how do I look in the media with everything.
Yeah.
I mean, compare that to the Korean government. You know, the president is getting dragged through the mud. He's getting dragged through the mud for, you know, the disease showing up here. Why didn't you shut down the border to China earlier? You know, and he's like, okay, my bad. Oh, by the way, here's a free test to find out if you got this or not. Like drive-through, like Wendy's drive-throughs they have here.
Right. You're right that some people are definitely dragging him through the mud, but at the same time, he's got a ton of support on the other side who can see clearly. Because there's been some misleading stories, I think, in the Washington Post recently about South Korea specifically. It was like, you know, they claimed that there was this a petition that was like, you know, demanding that the president step down from. You know,
I saw that. Yeah, 1.2 or 1.8 million people. Yeah, I saw that.
And which, you know, I'm just gonna assume that petition actually exists and that's factual. But the other thing is there's another petition with just as many, if not more, people who are saying, you know, fuck off, Moon, right. President Moon is doing fine, you know.
Right. And when you go out here in Korea, you know, the streets are a little bit emptier than they used to be. There's no doubt. But when you do see groups of people, everybody's got their mask on, nobody's touching their face, and life is slowly returning to a modicum of normalcy out here. So
I know you live in Cheongju. I live in Busan. The shit is empty here, and it has
really.
Been, yeah, it is, and it's been empty for at least a couple weeks.
Really? Huh. Yeah. I'm out here in Cheongju, and
you're in
you know, supermarkets still. You know, still supermarketing, you know, there's still people going out, but everybody's got their mask on. And the one time I did go out without a mask, I bought a guitar for my birthday because I knew I was going to be, you know, trapped in the house after reading what was going on. And I went to the guitar shop, the owner of the music shop. He makes violins by hand, which is awesome. And his wife comes out. It's like, why aren't you wearing a mask? I was like, oh, my bad. And I reached in my pocket and put the mask on. So, yeah, man. I mean, even though science says, you know, the mask is if you're not sick, I for the sake of the people around me, just so they can feel better, you know, I put a mask on when I go outside.
Yeah, so. I mean, it's unfortunate people's lack of understanding about the masks. I mean, I understand not everybody is deluded about this, but a lot of people are. The thing is it's really people who are in hospitals, hospital workers, nurses, doctors, things like this. They need the masks, and then the sick people need the masks, not really anybody else.
Yeah, that's basically what we've been reading. And that's what science says. So I try to go with science, but, you know, terror always wins over science, man. You know. And this is definitely the part in the book that I read, World War Z. What's going on in America? They're up to the part right now where the president's going out and saying everything's cool and we'll have a vaccine soon, and not to worry, keep doing what you're doing. And meanwhile, the weather's getting warmer. And so the zombies are moving around better because this started in the freezing cold winter. And then people are going to be like, oh, well, cases have gone down. Oh, shit, a zombie just broke through my house door. And just, yeah. because the lack of testing and knowing exactly where these people are, this is it's not good. And maybe if Trump hadn't crushed the 2018, if he hadn't crushed the Obama administration's viral outbreak program that they had, maybe we would have been up on this a little bit better in the United States. But he had to get rid of everything Obama. But he absolutely got rid of that. So
yeah, it was like sort of a lot of Trump's actions seem more like symbolic than anything else. Like, if it's associated with Obama, it must go.
Yeah, 100%. And he even said, I didn't know people could die of the flu. Nobody told me people could die of the flu.
What?
Meanwhile, his grandfather.
Here, right? I mean, what the fuck?
His grandfather died in the 1920 flu. And this is a guy telling you, oh, nobody knew that the flu killed so many people. Nobody knew the flu kills people. And I'm just like, oh my God, dude, your grandfather. I know how my grandmother died. You know what I'm saying? Like, how do you not know that this is what killed your grandfather? Just, I can't. I can't. I just can't. And then he even had. I know we usually don't do a lot of Trump, but I mean, it's just alarming, man. The man's just incompetence and the willing to lie at this point, when people could actually be dying from this shit. There was a town hall in Fox News, a Fox News town hall.
Mm-hmm.
So that's basically his home turf.
Right.
So one of the Fox News reporters asked him what plans are being considered on a federal level for the possibility of a long-term disruption from the novel coronavirus. And so Trump says, well, actually, we are giving tremendous marks. You look at the Gallup poll, you look at other polls for the way we have really handled it. And one of the things I did is I closed down the borders to China and to other areas that are very badly affected and really having a lot of trouble. I mean, countries and areas of countries that have had a lot of problems, and I closed them down really early against the advice of almost everybody, and we've been given rave reviews, Does that answer the question? It's like, what are you doing in terms of a long-term disruption? Well, we don't have, at the time, 11 people. We have 11 people, versus tremendous numbers of thousands of people that have died all over the world, and we have 149 cases, and there's 100,000 all over the world. So we are really given tremendous marks for having made the decision. It was a decision I made to close down the border so that people from China, where we take in thousands and thousands of people every day, they stop coming in very early, weeks ahead of where they normally would have been stopped. And then, the question is, what plans are being considered on a federal level for the possibility of a long-term disruption? Hello? Like, did that answer the question? Is it just me? Oh. Jesus. Whew. So, I mean, you and I, we have family back home in the States, and, the country is being run by a moron. And the man in charge of the response to a global viral outbreak doesn't believe in science and actually said, cigarettes don't cause cancer, and was responsible for an HIV outbreak being far worse than it had to be because, needles are for drug users. And just, I can't, man. Jesus. Ugh. I'm sorry, Matthew Phillips. That was my little rant. So what's on your mind? How's the weather?
Did you ever, when you were younger, did you ever learn card counting?
I did not, but I always wanted to be a grifter, and so that's something that I have on my bucket list of things to learn.
Yeah, it's when I was a kid, like maybe 10 or 11. My dad introduced me to these books. One of them is called Beat the Dealer.
Nice.
Beat the Dealer. And you could like read this book, and there's a couple other classics of the field. You could read this book and pick up the basics of card counting in a half hour.
Really?
And then, yeah. But then, there's a bunch of techniques in the book. And so obviously, if you spend a week or 2 weeks or 3 weeks or 4 weeks, your skills get better and better and better and better. Right. And so it obviously depends on how many decks are being used. And I mean, so if you're very new at the whole thing, but you come into a situation where there's 2 or 3 decks being used, well, then your skills really you can't use them.
Okay.
But if you were to just go into a regular situation, sort of informal betting with your buddies, as I say, you could spend a half hour with this, and you might not win a bunch of money because of it, but you could see certain patterns going on. And here I'm just talking about poker, but there's other like 21, you can do some card counting with that as well. But so anyways, I have decided that that this whole electability thing is probably best analogized to card counting.
Okay, I got you.
Let me explain. The reason I think it's a good analogy is I know for a fact that not everybody can count cards. They could if they spent a half hour or whatever with the book, but right now, as it stands, they did not do the half hour's worth of homework, and so they cannot. Most people cannot count cards. If you go into an informal situation where you're betting with your friends, you can be safe in assuming that most of the people around you can't count cards, unless you only have, let's say, card shark friends or whatever. But so anyways, yeah, so the way I explain it is there are things like ideology and there's things like identity. And identity is more like factual, like I have brown hair, I have blue eyes. On my census survey, I checked the box that says I'm white. These are things I can't change about me. They're regular, just facts, Like the earth is round. I can't do anything to change that. It's just a fact. And then there's my ideology. And, that might be like, I think no people should go hungry. These are my beliefs and stuff like that. These can change over time. It's different from my hair color, different from my height, which are things that really can't change, right? So there's ideology, which is basically somebody's politics. There's identity, and then other similar facts, like let's say I have a record of voting a certain way. Okay, that describes my politics, but it's just a fact. Okay, now electability, on the other hand, is not ideology. It's not a description of how I feel about poor people. It's not a description about how I feel about Democrats or Republicans or, it's not. It's something different. It's a bet about the future. Is what electability is. And that's the other reason why I think it's a good analogy is card counting is a way to place bets in a more effective manner.
I see, he said.
So the problem is when the media talks about this electability thing, the assumption, the hidden assumption seems to be that everybody's a good card counter. I'm a particularly good card counter, and I want you to believe the bet that I'm putting on the line here about this particular hand we have in front of us. But the problem is, not everybody's a good card counter. And in my analogy, that would translate into not everybody is real clued up on politics, and so not everybody's opinion on this matter is equal.
Okay, now I understand. You had me confused for a minute, but I get where you're going now. Okay.
Yeah, it's a little bit convoluted. I admit. But yeah, I mean, the thing that is frustrating me is almost 100% of the time when people on the TV news talk about this thing, electability, the problem is they're assuming, I mean, they all said that Hillary was going to be president. They were wrong.
Yeah, they were trying as hard as they could to make that happen.
So, we know that they're really shit card counters. They don't even know what they're talking about.
Yeah, the game is rigged. They tried to rig the game, but it didn't work. It didn't work. And right now, we keep seeing Joe Biden, forget what his wife looks like, forget the Declaration of Independence. Recently, it was Biden Obama.
Yeah.
The man seems like he's off his fucking rocker, as my late cousin used to say, and it is very disturbing. When we saw the returns from Super Tuesday, I was much more crestfallen than you were about that shit, man, because it just appears that it's going to happen again, that the centrist is going to be put up against the fake populists, and the centrist is going to lose, because if people have a choice between Republican and Republican light, they just choose Republican, man.
Well, and also, it's not just that's an important dynamic, but the other dynamic is in 2016, the primary was basically rigged.
Yeah.
And there's levels of rigging, so I don't think anybody needs to get too tied up about the terminology here. But in the 2016 election, the race was definitely rigged to one extent or another. And so you're basically telling, the Democratic Party is basically telling its base, go fuck off. So do you think in the general that might depress voter turnout a little bit?
Well, that's what I was worried about. I've been worried. Once I saw the returns come in on Super Tuesday, I was worried that people are going to see, it's Biden again. Biden's going to do it. So that means that if Biden's going to do it, we don't have to go with Bernie anymore, because people actually do like Biden.
Right.
And
2 or 3 days of media coverage before Super Tuesday was, at least to a small extent, depressing turnout. I mean,
man.
It's such skewed coverage that how could it not, right? I mean,
yeah. And what they did with Texas, with the very conveniently a week or two before Super Tuesday, suddenly polling places are getting closed.
Well, not even a week before. I mean, although there were many instances of polling places being closed a week before, the problem is, that's actually fairly reasonable, because that gives you enough time to plan for the new place. But the problem is when they close shit or change shit a day before or an hour before.
Yeah. There was that article that kept going around with that one brother. He was like, I was in line for 7 hours to vote. And I'm thinking, bruh, that's not good.
Yeah.
That's not good, man. Because that's the same thing we saw happen with Bush versus Gore. In Florida, it was hard for people to get out to vote.
Yeah.
It's just, as a matter of fact, going back to our favorite show, Narcos Mexico, that's the same tactic that they employed. The drug dealer that ended up running things over Pablo, after Pablo in Mexico, he needed to keep the PRI in power so that he could have his pipeline to the government.
You're thinking Mexico, right? Yeah.
Yeah. He needed to keep his money line and his power in the government together. So they rigged the election, and they tried to rig the election just by messing with the voting numbers.
Yeah.
But when the computer scheme didn't work, they started just interfering directly at the polls, closing polls, changing the numbers by adding a zero.
Yeah, that's what they had to do at the end. They had to get their thugs in and just add a zero on the end.
Yeah. Spoiler alert. Spoiler alert to history, I might add. But man, voter suppression is so endemic now in the United States. People don't even pay attention to the shit, man. This happened in Ohio, it happened in Michigan, and it just happened again. So that we can get Biden. Man,
that's another part of the stakes that hasn't been discussed enough yet. Is if Trump gets in 2020, then the Republicans will control the redistricting and the gerrymandering for another decade.
Yep, and both parties have admitted to doing gerrymandering, but it just seems to work so much better when the Republicans do it. I just don't understand why, man. And I get it. I get it being on the losing side because I've been a Knicks fan for most of my life. So I always cheer for the losing team, and it just seems like this is the Knicks all over again, man. It's the Democratic Party is the Knicks.
Oh, and since we're talking about elections, I'm going to throw in real quick the Bolivia thing. For when that shit was going down, the OAS claimed that there was irregular voting, or that somehow or another it was not a real election.
Right.
But it has recently come to light in the past week or so that shit they were wrong about those judgments, that there was nothing wrong with that election. And I mean, if you compare, we still don't even have the vote totals for Colorado, Texas, California, and it's 4 and 5 days later.
Right.
They were complaining about a 12-hour gap in Bolivia.
Right. Oops. Sorry. Oops. Like Ken Brockman said, man, I've said it before and I'll say it again, democracy just doesn't work, man. The Simpsons. Before Liz Warren started changing her tune and started going a little bit more to the right, I dug Liz Warren. She did good stuff with the CFP.
Yeah.
The protections.
Yeah, CPF. Yeah,
CPF. Thank you. Yeah. She did good things in government. She was trying to protect people from predatory loans and stuff like that. She was going after Wall Street. And then her advisors just told her, go to the center, go more to the right. I like Liz.
Oh, sorry. It's the CFP.
Thank you, CFPP. Thank you. So I was down with Liz. I enjoy Bernie. Andrew Yang had some good points with the UBI,
right?
Yeah, the basic income. I mean, for all the people who talk, socialism, Alaska's been getting. Every resident of Alaska gets a check for their oil output, and nobody complains about that. That's not socialism.
Yeah, I think that's been for the past 30, 40 years.
Yeah. So it's not something that just came out of nowhere, These are things that have happened in this country before. So right now, you got Biden, you got Bernie, and Tulsi Gabbard wants to get onto the debate stage. I don't see why she shouldn't. They let Bloomberg in, and he added absolutely nothing to the conversation other than $500 million.
Yeah, they had to change the rules because Tulsi got her delegate.
Right. But now they're going to change the rules so that Tulsi can fuck off, which is not fair. It's not fair at all.
You said you were worried about Biden. I'm worried as well, because not only would he be a bad president if he won, but basically there's no chance that he would win. They've been hiding Biden for the past week, and and then just in the past 12 or 24 hours, they trot him out for 7 minutes.
I saw that. Yeah. It's worrisome. I think that people think that Biden does have a chance, actually, because somehow Biden comes across as not insane, which I don't understand. A lot of people are comparing Bernie to Trump because Bernie has rabid fans, and then there's that stupid Bernie Bros meme that keeps going around, that some people some Bernie supporters are crazy. Yeah, turn off the internet, man. Talk to the other 40 million people that want to see Bernie win. I mean,
at the end of the day, I would guess that 50 to 80% of people are basically rational enough to have a decent conversation with. But it's just the problem is like the media is controlled by MSNBC and all that kind of shit. I mean, those people are the top 10%, and they don't see any of us poor people ever in their life, and so they have no clue about what we think, how we live. They have no clue, right? But they present their news in a way to make people believe that most people agree with them. But in actuality, that is totally and completely false. Most people believe what you and I believe.
Yeah, well, you hope so. And another thing about Tulsi is that she wants to get on the stage so she can talk about, hey, Afghanistan, what's the deal with that? There's billions and trillions of dollars being spent there, because all of the questions at the debates are about, how are we going to pay for universal health care? And no one talks about how much money is being spent on just murder of brown people.
I think there's been at least like 30 or more questions about how we're going to pay for your plan, Bernie, but there hasn't been any questions about, well, how we're going to pay for the next 5-decade war.
Yeah. And even with the hopeful end of the war in Afghanistan, that's come up in the last month or so since we've been away. Right. That they're finally starting. The government's finally starting to get, what is it? It's a ceasefire. Yeah. Ceasefire, hopefully leading to the end of the war. And that would be a big feather in Trump's cap.
Yeah.
If the war ends, and you don't want to root against the war in Afghanistan ending because that would be good for Trump. Like, this is, that would be terrible. You want the war in Afghanistan to end. And if that does end, then that's going to be under Trump's watch. And that'll be another thing that he can say he did. And I am all about ending that war in Afghanistan. Just too much money wasted, too many people dying.
Yeah.
Too many people dying. So, what did you want to say about UC Santa Cruz? There's a strike going on there, isn't it?
Yeah. So, like, it started a month or two ago, and it was not on anybody's radar. It was very small. It was just a few, maybe 10 or 20 scrappy individuals, and then it built to 30 or 40, and then 50 or 60, and then in the past couple weeks or so, it has started to spread to almost, I think, every other UC campus, Berkeley. I think all of them. So that's incredibly encouraging, because that is one of the biggest employers in the state, and so if we got people striking in that kind of an environment, that means that other less challenging environments would be possible.
That's what's up, man. Yeah, the TAs, the teaching assistants, there are about 750 TAs each quarter, and they went on a grading strike because where they live, apparently rent is out of control.
Yeah.
I got this from NPR. There's a woman that says she's a TA. She makes 21 grand a year, and the median rent in Santa Cruz is 3,000 a month. Sorry, can't live.
I used to live there. That's my alma mater. So it sounds like she's lying. She's not. The shit's really expensive there.
Yeah. So they're looking for a cost of living adjustment, which, senators and congressmen get cost of living adjustments. They get raises every year, unless I'm mistaken.
Yeah, they generally somehow find the time to get a COLA, a cost of living adjustment.
Yeah. So these people are looking for a cost of living adjustment, and a cost of living adjustment is not so I can have money to buy an Xbox and a 60-inch TV. This is so I can pay my bills. And I think that honestly, this ties into what I wanted to talk to you about: paid leave.
Cool.
Because you're talking about these people, they're going on strike for cost of living adjustments.
Yeah.
All right.
That's right.
And to go back to what we were saying, the coronavirus there's not a lot of testing being done in the United States, so we don't know exactly who's got it or where they are. Airport screeners, health workers, fast food workers, Uber drivers and taxi drivers. These people, do you think that they can just say, yeah, I'm not going to go to work for a month? Wow.
In America, I can't think of any worker making under like 40,000 that would be able to take off more than a week or so.
I can't imagine it. I know that when I had a job working in Midtown, I couldn't disappear for a month.
Yeah.
And I was working at an advertising agency, which was supposed to be a good job in the eyes of people. And I couldn't tell them, hey, I'm going to take off work for a month.
Yeah.
So I can avoid the plague. It's not a thing.
And probably to do even a week would be a bit of an ask, right?
I've taken days off at my office jobs in the United States and had phone calls coming in 24 hours later, like, when are you coming back? and this is not during the outbreak of a new virus. So, you have an airport screener, all they do is interact with people.
Yeah.
And so one person, a screener with the U.S. Center for Disease Control and Prevention, they asked the supervisors this week to change the official protocols and get stronger masks, according to an internal document reviewed by Reuters. This story is from Reuters. Friday evening, 2 screeners, both working at LAX, tested positive for the virus. Because, of course, all they do is interact with people. And then the CDC is urging sick workers to stay home. But if you don't get paid sick leave, what happens, Matt? Very simply, I can't go to work because I'm sick. What's going to happen? Oh, you're fired. You're fired.
And in the United States, when people lose their job, they're generally out of they're generally out of work for at least 10, 12 weeks.
Yeah. I had a relative who had a car crash where if you saw the car after the car accident, you would wonder how my relative stayed alive. And unable to go to work, and the job fired. The person lost their job. And that was not a novel coronavirus outbreak. That's just, if you saw this car that looked like it was crushed by the Incredible Hulk, yeah, I had to stay in the hospital. And that person was fired. So, paid leave around the world, right? So many countries actually will give you paid leave, but here are a few countries that don't. Looks like India has no paid leave. Mm-hmm. South Korea has no paid leave. Mm-hmm. And USA, no paid leave. China, you get 6 months or more. Australia, 6 months or more. The length of paid leave for personal illness for workers with at least 1 year of tenure at the job. So that's the main thing that worries me about this coronavirus, because so many people in the United States have 1, 2, even 3 jobs. and they have to work at all of these jobs. What's going to happen if they get sick, or if things really slow down? There are already people who are suffering because they can't go to work. There's people in Korea where, you know, I've seen on their Facebook post, I haven't been able to go to work. Oops, I lost my job. So what do you think, Matthew Phillips? What can we do here? What are your thoughts?
Well, this is new territory for the United States. I mean, like, as far as like the past few decades and a serious outbreak, you know, I can't think of any other time in the past few decades where this kind of thing, you know, has happened in the United States.
Mm-hmm.
So it would. I don't know. I'm at a loss really to respond, because
Yeah.
you've laid out the case that employers and employees seem to be unable to make certain decisions.
Yeah. It's there's literally nothing you could do. So, Japan is a country where you're going to get paid leave for personal illness. It says Austria, Luxembourg, Netherlands, Slovenia, Italy. You know,
Our wonderful correspondent Allie Valkyrie, she was talking about this a little bit on her Facebook, talking about, you know, European countries, France, who have paid leave. You know, it's just there. You know, people expect it. People know that they deserve it. I mean, because let's get real. The things you're talking about here, car accidents, you know, these are beyond people's control. They're not showing up to work because they want to, you know, give the finger to the man.
yeah, they're not going to Mardi Gras, exactly. Yeah.
So I mean, I guess the viewpoint that I would have to taking a cue from Allie here, is people need to change their mind. They need to realize, you know, that certain systems are basically bad. They're bad systems, and for you to go along with them and to not question them is equally bad.
There it is, man. And tying health insurance to labor is just not a good idea. Period. End of sentence.
That's a great connection.
It's not a good idea.
Given the nature, I mean, forget about outbreaks for a moment, although that's a stark illustration.
Right.
But basically, health is not a matter of personal choice. People don't choose to become sick.
It's really that simple. Yeah.
I've got some good news.
I got some bad news.
Here are two stories that are quote unquote good news.
Okay.
First good news. This one from MSN, courtesy of the Washington Post. Jake and Marquis Bally, or Ball, of Clinton, Utah, they go to Mexico and buy insulin there and then bring it back to the United States for people. So these people, really nice, you know, they're cool, but listen to what I'm saying, you know, for people to get insulin, that, correct me if I'm wrong, if they don't get it, they will die.
Yeah, that's true.
These people are going to Mexico and doing people a huge solid, frankly. They're really good people to be doing this. They're going to Mexico knowing that prescription drugs are much cheaper, and they offer to pick up several insulin pens at a pharmacy for someone and bring them back in an insulated lunchbox. The story says the guy came home with 6 or 7 and paid $13 for them in Mexico. The same brand that they sell here in the United States for $110 each.
So nearly a tenfold decrease.
Yeah, and the reason why they went to Mexico is because their son uses 5 a month.
So for him, that's about $600 or more.
Can you imagine?
Yeah, that's some people have more extreme health issues than other people, but like, yeah, I mean, let's say it's only 10 or 20% of the population, right?
Yeah.
Imagine spending $600 a month on medicine. What the fuck, right?
On medicine. I mean,
and if you make
go ahead.
If you make 50 or 60,000, well, that's fine. I mean, it's inconvenient, but you can deal with that. But if you're like most people, you make under 40, and so that's like,
yeah. And these people are married, so they've got a 2-income household, and still, you know. So, you know, for years they budget and they don't splurge because $550 a month is their insulin cost. The next highest cost is their mortgage. Like, what the hell, man?
That's in a year. That's about $7,000 or $8,000, and so if you're making under 40, that's almost a fourth of your check gone.
Right. And these are people who have health insurance.
Right. But that's the thing that got me. I remember when my dad explained to me health insurance when I was about maybe 12, 13, 14. I just couldn't understand it, you know, like you pay this monthly, but then if you want to get something for the money that you've been paying for, you've got to have, a deductible or whatever. What the fuck?
Oh, so hold on a second. Those two people, they're not actually going to Mexico. They're getting the insulin pens from a guy who they sold a house to. Let me make sure that's correct. Yeah. They sold a guy a house and he travels to Mexico and he said, all right, well, I'll get you a couple. So that's the correct way the story goes. But these people, they have health insurance. They're both employed and their son is going to die if he doesn't get the insulin. And so, hey, this person, Eric Threlkeld, buys insulin pens for them for $11 to $16 a pop versus $110 each in the United States. They have a $6,000 deductible on their health insurance. $6,000 deductible.
And as far as I know, that's extremely standard. Like, that's not unusual. That, like, if you have health insurance, you almost certainly have a similar deal going on.
Well, this is why when Biden won big in Super Tuesday, health insurance stocks went up.
Yeah.
Because this has to continue. And this is why all hands are on deck to get Bernie out. Because Bernie will dismantle most of the private health insurance industry. There's billions of dollars on the line. And stories like this are why there's so much money on the line. This is why they cannot keep Bernie in this race.
Right. Let me give you some negative hope. So I want you to think about, like, let's say 10 years ago or so, maybe 15 years ago.
Okay.
Like, when you wanted some good, solid news reporting, you found it a little bit difficult, didn't you?
Yeah.
Nowadays, like, with Twitter and everything else, like, it's pretty ridiculously easy to find, like, good, incisive, independent reporting.
Mm-hmm.
So I guess the point I'm trying to make is the left is actually resurgent, and if Bernie loses, that's going to be the biggest assist to the left possible.
Yeah, I agree. I also think too, you know Jimmy Dore, right?
By the way, I should rephrase that. If they steal the nomination away from Bernie, that would be the biggest lift for the left. Now, go ahead, Zach.
That's what I was saying. You know Jimmy Dore. His show has vastly improved since he used to be on the on the Young Turks and went off on his own. And he made a great point about how Bernie should have long ago said, you know what, fuck this, we're starting our own party, especially after what happened in 2016. Because if he starts his own party or runs as an independent and has all of these followers, then that means he's really taking votes away. Remember how they said like Nader took votes away from Gore,
right?
And then he would be able to have, okay, I got leverage now on you people, and you will have to either come to my table or let me be the nominee.
Well,
because
I'm a little bit on the fence about that.
Mm-hmm. What do you think?
I mean, in a way, what I view Bernie's as doing right now, Bernie's like a surgeon, and he's trying to excise the cancer out of the Democratic Party. And he's like one or two movements or flicks of the wrist away from successfully excising the cancer from the party. Now, he might not be successful in his attempts here, but the whole, like, him running in the Democratic Party has forced the masks off situation with the Democrats. They're now fully revealed to be the corrupt motherfuckers they are.
That's true. But you look at who's out of the race now.
Right.
Cory Booker, Kamala Harris, Buttigieg, even Warren, who turned to the dark side a bit. You know, those are the people who are going to quote unquote carry the torch after all these old people die. And, you know, are they also going to be center left? You know, are they actually going to do the progressive thing? You know, time will tell. But
I'm thinking more like AOC, Rashida Tlaib, Ilhan Omar.
Well, agreed. But again, those ladies have also gotten just all hands on deck against them because they're pushing the Bernie banner or the progressive banner.
Guys is gender neutral in California.
It's 2020, man. We got to start using the right pronouns.
Comrade.
Comrade, that's right. The struggle is real. Okay, so
you're right. There's a lot of resistance in regards to Ilhan Omar and the rest of them.
It's the vitriol is not good, man. We got to do that on another podcast. Just talk about how the alarming backlash to them just, you know, saying we want healthcare for all. You know, they're like, oh, go back to Africa. Like, what? You know what I'm saying? Like, really? That's the response to that? Yeah. You know, I want everybody to make $15 an hour. You know,
Bernie's like Stalin.
Yeah. What? I mean, you understand $15 an hour is still not enough, right? What are we talking about here? You know,
Martin Luther King Jr. in '64 pushed for a $2 an hour minimum wage. Do you know what $2 an hour would be right now?
$30.
17.
Okay, my math is awful. That's why I'm no longer an engineering student. All right, man. And then the next good news story, which, you know, because I said good news, but just like the other story where that was good news, it's like, is that really good news? I mean,
is it really?
Because, you know, these are the things that you see, you know, on the Today Show and Good Morning America. And in the really heartwarming story, a man with no legs is built a wheelchair by high school students. It's like, what? You're kind of burying the lead there, I think, you know. And there was actually something like that I saw on the internet.
Be careful, I almost spit out my coffee.
Okay, no. But in all seriousness, it is good to see the kindness of strangers and the inherent goodness of mankind. On the other hand, fuck, dude. There's got to be a safety net for people who end up going through this type of shit. You know, for the people who don't get it. You know what I'm saying? For the people who everything, just the joke, always goes over their head. You got to explain things.
Right.
So the other quote-unquote good news, students raised over $30,000 to help a homeless Wendy's employee and his mother. So that's really nice, right? A fast food worker whose home was severely damaged by a fire made such an impact on his customers that they're now raising money to help repair the house. Malcolm Coleman has worked in the fast food industry for 15 years, and he's currently an employee at the Wendy's on the University of South Carolina's campus in Columbia. In January, an electrical fire destroyed his entire home, making it uninhabitable for him and his mom. The insurance lapsed, so the damage wasn't covered, and the repairs were too expensive, so they've been couch surfing. And they've been couch surfing for over a year. And his father also died last year. And like so many of these heartwarming stories, the students Coleman serves say he's consistently kind and positive. He's always smiling and he's always laughing, which is admirable when the tough situation he's in is taken into account. That's another thing that these types of stories always say. The person is going through the struggle, but they're always, stiff upper lip. There was one story years ago that I read. There was a guy who was walking like 20 miles to work and people bought him a car. And it's just like, why is the public transportation not good enough for this man? And I don't mean it's not good enough for him as in he's above taking public transportation. I mean, so many places, there are no buses, or the buses come once an hour.
Right.
Anyway, so all of this is from the Today Show. All this is from the Today Show. So the students help him out, and Robert Calderoni starts a GoFundMe with a goal of $75,000, and they end up giving him some cash. So what do you think, brother?
Well, yeah, I mean, I think usually the mistake that's being made with these kinds of stories is like pretending that there's not a system underlying all of this, which is at fault.
Yeah.
It's like when you get reporting on Afghanistan or some other place in far off in the world that nobody's ever been to, right? There's no history, there's no context in these stories, and so like if there's no history or context, then the story itself is almost certainly bullshit. Like, right? I mean,
yeah.
Imagine I don't know you, and I just I pop up to your front door and I knock on your door and I say, I got a girlfriend yesterday. You're like, I don't know you. Who cares? Fuck off.
It's good news, Matt. What do you mean? Don't be such a cynical asshole. Yeah, man. For me, so many things pop out. The major one is this guy's been working at Wendy's for 15 years.
Right. I thought these were supposed to be starter jobs.
Well, anyway. Yeah. Look, that's another podcast.
Most people that work at these jobs are not teenagers.
No, not at all. Not at all. How many times have you gone to E-Mart here in Korea? The women and the men that are working at cashier, they're not teenagers.
Yeah.
They're not teenagers, So 15 years this guy's been working at Wendy's, is he a manager? The story doesn't say, because it's the Today Show and journalism sucks. What is his job?
Right.
How much does he make a year? You would think that these types of things would be important to the story where the guy's getting 30 grand from college kids.
Right. That's not a small sum.
It's not a small sum, dude. So Here to me, here's the hilarious part of the story, which is not supposed to be funny. 15 years this guy's been working at Wendy's. When Coleman, the guy who's getting the money, first found out about the fundraiser, Calderoni said the fast food worker was shocked and incredibly grateful. Calderoni says Malcolm's first response was pouring me a chocolate frosty. I was like, oh. I mean,
It sounds like a slave situation.
this is what. Thank you, yo. And this is not on Calderoni. You know, Calderoni's trying to help out Coleman, but you the image in my head is Coleman's there, keeping a smile on his face. Welcome to Wendy's. Can I take your order? Would you like fries with your junior bacon cheeseburger? And meanwhile, on the inside, he's like, my father's dead. My house is broke. I have no money. I've been working in fast food for 15 fucking years. And every day, it's only through the grace of God that I don't just take a flamethrower to this place. And then this kid comes up, hey dude, we're going to give you 30 grand. And then he's like, I should give him a frosty. Again, I have to stop being such a cynical asshole because this
also, whenever I hear this specific genre where a huge lump sum is given, like that sounds so shady to me. Like the person who is on the receiving end is going to definitely feel like what's the word? Like they owe you something, right?
Well, there is that, yeah. That's right.
But then also, like, I really would. I mean, the thing that flashes up in my head, like a big bunch of red flags, is like, how again did they raise this money? Like,
it was a GoFundMe.
Okay, that's it.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, then that answers that question. But
yeah, I'm sorry if I didn't mention that. Yeah, it was a GoFundMe.
No, you might have, but like in the past, I've heard these kinds of stories before, and that's what flashes up in my mind is like, whoa, how did you get this money from where? What?
Oh yeah, well don't get it twisted. There are definitely some fake GoFundMes out there, and unfortunately, GoFundMe is the way that a lot of Americans pay for, drum roll, health insurance.
Yeah.
And operations. GoFundMe is full of, I need an operation, I need to go to the doctor.
Yeah, it's probably like, I don't know if I've seen stats on this or not, but I'd be surprised if anything less than 20% of GoFundMe was not related to that, Man,
let's find out. Hold on a second. I'm going to type into the Google, GoFundMe, healthcare. Medical fundraising. What percentage of GoFundMe is medical? There's a lot of cost. There's a lot of cost associated. Hold on a second. Patients are turning to GoFundMe to fill in health insurance gaps. 2018. GoFundMe says contributors have raised more than $5 billion, all told, from 50 million donations in the 8 years it's been in business. Setting up a GoFundMe page has become a go-to way for people in need of help to pay their doctors and other medical providers. Medical fundraisers now account for, drum roll, 1 in 3 of the website's campaigns, and they bring in more money than any other GoFundMe category, says GoFundMe CEO Rob Solomon. And this is December 2018. 33%, dude.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
Unbelievable, right?
Oh my God. Her organization, there's an organization called the Commonwealth Fund, who studies American healthcare concerns. The organization recently surveyed working-age Americans, asking whether they felt they had the ability to pay an unexpected medical bill of $1,000 in 30 days. Nearly half said no.
Sure. I mean, there's most households don't have, more than about $400. So Bernie's campaign is amazing in many different ways, but one way that really amazes me in the past week or so is his fundraising. He's not asking money from billionaires. In fact, he's declining money from them. All of it is from the people, right? Not faceless fucking corporations who have like favors to ask later. We're doing this all by ourselves so far. Everything is us. So that's amazing because, you know, Americans like to claim that they love freedom and independence. But then sometimes when you put them face to face with freedom and independence, it's sometimes the scariest fucking thing they've ever seen, you know?
Yeah.
But yeah, any Bernie people should be fucking so proud as hell. We're doing this all by ourselves. All the other candidates can't. They can't. They can only beg. They can only beg to fucking billionaires.
Well, Bill Maher had a real interesting take on this because I still do check out that show real time because I'm always fascinated at how far to the right that dude has gone.
Right.
He says that Democrats should just take the money. Democrats are competing to see not who can attract the most donors, but who can refuse the most because they're pure losers. It's not purity, it's vanity. It's unilateral disarmament. It's bringing a hug to a gunfight. If Trump can take money from criminals in foreign governments, you can take money from Aetna. And here's a little secret about economics. If you take money from bad people, it's money that they, the bad people, don't have. And he went on to slam former 2020 candidates Elizabeth Warren and Cory Booker for having returned campaign money from convicted rapist Harvey Weinstein. Why? The money didn't rape anybody because it's money, he said. It doesn't know where it came from. For fuck's sake, it's money, not kale. Drum roll. The only fair solution is complete public financing of campaigns, he said. But until that happens, get off your high horse about wine caves and billionaires who want to help. Purists say you can't buy an election, and I say against Trump, please do. Bill Maher, ladies and gentlemen.
Oh, that disgusts me so much, as you can probably guess. How about this? You know what? I really don't think rape is the moral thing to do. But until everyone stops, I should just be allowed to do some of it, right? Can I do a little raping? Just a little bit?
Bill Maher, man. What do you want? Bill Maher. Hey.
Fuck. It's fucking incoherent.
Bill Maher, man. And he says, you can take the money and do some good with it, And this is the same idea of, you can change the system from the inside, and this is why Jimmy Dore says, Bernie should have started his own party.
There is no inside outside. So I mean, power is power. Ideally, in the next 4-8 years, we make a new party, but there ain't no new party right now. So
there is not a new party right now. Absolutely. Yep.
Now,
and finally,
if Bernie is denied the nomination in some unfair manner, then I will definitely push for him to run independent.
How do you feel about Public Enemy?
They were instrumental in my early musical tastes.
Yeah, man. Public Enemy is one of my favorite groups of all time. When Chuck D came to Soul, he and DJ Lord, I met them both.
Nice.
My friends were all saying, why didn't you take a picture with Chuck D? I said, because you can't take a picture with Jesus, You don't do a selfie with the Pope, You have some class, you know what I mean? Now, granted, Chuck D is not Jesus and the Pope, but, in my formative years, he was.
Yeah.
And there was a big deal when Rage Against the Machine. There was a big deal when Public Enemy did a show for Bernie. I think it was March 1st, as a matter of fact.
Did you get to see that? I did.
I did not because.
Okay, check it out.
How'd you see it?
Oh, it was just streaming, right?
I'm definitely going to look for that online.
Yeah, because there's a couple points in it where Chuck D goes off, and it's really good.
Oh, listen. Anyway, I can't. This is how I feel about Chuck D. Chuck D is the man. I read the autobiography of Malcolm X because I was listening to Public Enemy back in the day.
Right.
So what ends up happening is Flavor Flav, he gets mad because Flavor Flav is saying, you know what? Public Enemy is not actually down with you, Bernie Sanders. And Chuck D is like, actually we are. And shut the hell up, Flavor Flav. And so this ended up being a thing a little bit last week and over the last 2 weeks.
Yeah.
That Public Enemy fired Flavor Flav.
Yeah.
But actually, according to Chuck and Public Enemy, Flavor Flav has been on suspension since 2016.
Right.
Yeah. Because Flav only shows up when the bag is in hand,
Oh.
He doesn't do benefit shows,
Right.
And,
he didn't show up to the Harry Belafonte thing, right?
Right. He didn't show up to the Harry Belafonte thing when they were trying to make other albums and do other performances. He was on Flavor of Love and Smoking Crack. So, yeah. What do you think about Flavor Flav, Chuck D, Public Enemy? Give me some thoughts, Matthew Phillips.
Well, I think that's one of the hidden threads and that you and I share. We probably share quite a few, but like there's not a huge difference in age, but a medium difference in age between you and I. I think you're 7 years behind me.
Yeah.
But so in a way, like, I'm a little bit surprised that you like him as much as you do. But on the other hand, because he's definitely my generation.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it's hard for me to imagine a person being black and not loving Public Enemy. That might sound wrong, but God, I love Public Enemy. And
no, I get what you're saying, man. They were a part of the zeitgeist.
Yeah.
They were definitely a part of the zeitgeist. And in the 80s, groups like Public Enemy really were about raising political consciousness with hip hop. This was before everybody started acting gangster.
Right.
When Public Enemy came out. And the period of Public Enemy and A Tribe Called Quest, they were about black consciousness, positivity, and also fuck the government.
Yeah.
And so, yeah, Public Enemy was just always a part of my life growing up in New York in the 80s and the 90s. Yeah, man. I used to love how they had the lyrics to every song inside the album jacket. It was awesome. It's the first record. For you kids who don't know, records were large pieces of vinyl with grooves cut into them so you could listen to sound when a stylus was placed upon it. It's the first record I ever actually wore out. I wore out parts of that record.
Nice.
Yeah,
Which one?
A Nation of Millions to Hold Us Back.
Yeah. That was their first, right?
That was their second. The first one was Yo Bum Rush the Show. Yeah. The sound got cleaned up. They tightened up a lot on the second album. And sampling is one of the groups. Sampling hit Public Enemy and Tribe Called Quest really hard when record companies started going after rappers for sampling.
And then the same era, De La Soul and
De La too.
And Beastie Boys, of course.
Yeah, totally. So I thought it was weird that Flavor Flav would come out against Bernie.
Yeah. Yeah.
I didn't understand why he was so against. It was specifically like, I'm not down with Bernie Sanders. Like, what?
You know what I mean, the guess that I made, and I didn't read any like in-depth articles on this, but the guess that I made was that Flavor Flav probably did this on principle, not to do with Bernie, but more like, hey, if I ain't getting paid, I ain't doing this. I don't care if it's Jesus who's there, you know.
I think so. I really do hope it's just about the bread. Yeah. Because he's got to understand that all the shit the Public Enemy has been rapping about for 30 years, I mean, Bernie stands for a good chunk of it.
Yeah.
Well, all right, brother. That's about it for us, man.
Did we knock this one out of the park?
I believe so, man. I feel good about a lot of this.
Yeah, me too.